Buenos días, bienvenidas a todas las personas que se están conectando en esta sesión informativa. Como algunos de ustedes saben, hemos estado con algunas universidades de los Países Bajos. También ayer estuvimos hablando con un representante de la Embajada de los Países Bajos para conocer acerca de su sistema académico. La primera invitación es a que consulten nuestra agenda de eventos que encuentran en nuestra página web colfuturo.org. Al final de la página web está toda nuestra programación y también a que nos sigan en redes sociales, pues allí estaremos publicando todos los eventos que tenemos programados, tanto con Países Bajos como con las demás campañas que vamos a tener de aquí a diciembre. Y lo siguiente es que si hay alguna sesión que les interesaba y no pudieron asistir, pueden consultarla en nuestro canal de YouTube. Aproximadamente 5 o 6 días después de que fue la sesión, van a encontrar la grabación. Entonces, bueno, ya entrando un poco en materia, hoy nos acompaña Darren Barada. Él es representante de la Universidad Erasmus University Rotterdam, específicamente de el International Institute of Social Studies, con quien tenemos un convenio que otorga un descuento del 20% a todas las personas que sean beneficiarios de Colfuturo y que vayan para esta universidad y pues específicamente para esta facultad. Entonces, bueno, si alguien tiene dudas, hoy vamos a estar hablando específicamente de la oferta académica y demás de la universidad. Sin embargo, si alguien tiene dudas del programa Crédito Beca, recuerden que tenemos sesiones informativas todos los meses, el primer viernes de cada mes a las 8 de la mañana y el segundo sábado de cada mes a las 9:30 de la mañana. También se pueden programar por nuestra página web. Entonces, bueno, sin más preámbulo, thank you very much, Darren, for joining us for this session. You can now start the presentation.
Uh, Thank you, Carolina, for the brief introduction. And thank you, everyone. Good morning, should I say. It's at 5 o'clock here in the Netherlands, so here is evening. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time off from your busy schedule to join me and get to know the International Institute of Social Studies, and particularly for the our one and only master program that we have, the Development Studies Master Program. So my name is Darren, and I'm responsible for student recruitment at ISS, the International Institute of Social Studies. So I am responsible for, I'm not responsible for admissions, but I'm responsible for recruiting students, but I do have knowledge about admissions and so on. So I'm here today to give you a presentation about our subject and what it entails. So before I move on, I would like to highlight that according to QS World Ranking University by subjects, we are, for the subject of development study, we are #1 in the Netherlands for the second year running now. So last year we were also #1, and this year we are also #1 in Europe, and number 12 worldwide for this particular subject. So we are very proud of that. Now, without further ado, so ISS in a nutshell, we were founded in 1952. So we were a private institute prior to joining Erasmus University in 2009. We have multicultural learning environment, so there's a lot of diversity and inclusion at ISS. A lot of students. Later, I will share with you the number of nationalities on a yearly basis that we have at ISS. It really shows that ISS is like a melting pot for students to network and get to know one another. We also have an international staff and student body. And here is the ISS by continent, particularly for Latin America. You will see the third from your left. It's written that Latin America, and green is the number of students that we have from last year. So as you can see, we have around 32 students from Latin America, and about, I believe, 15 of those, so half or a little bit less than half, is from Colombia, particularly. And later I will share with you some details about how many students who receive Colfuturo as well. But for this part, as you can see, we really have almost, I would say, double or close to double our students from Latin America. So a lot of more students are particularly interested in studying at ISS for the past, especially last year. And this year we are expecting the same. I have received some information from admission office of ISS today that we have quite a lot of Latin American students. We may even surpass what we have last year, but the final count we will see only in August. Other than that, as I mentioned earlier, we are very diverse in background among students. So you can see there are a lot of students from Africa, from Asia, Europe, North America, Middle East, and Oceania. These are the 7 continents, and this is all the breakdowns for the past 5 years. Now, the ISS student, how do you say, the body? Yeah, so we have young students, we have mid-career professional with an average age, it's not 30 anymore, sorry for that mistake, it's 27 now, 26, 27. So the average age is dropping. So more and more younger students are particularly interested in taking up this master program. A lot of our students are coming from government officials, so they work in the ministry and so on, or the local government. They're also in civil society and national NGO, community-based organization, and trade unions. So all these, for example, the governments and the students who come from the international and national NGO, they tend to take, their background is based on what major they will take at ISS. I will explain to you a little bit on that later. So there's also a lot of researchers in research institute, journalists, consultants, and university lecturers as well. Recently, for the past 5 years, we have opened our doors to recent graduates as well. In the past, it was very difficult for recent graduates to come to ISS, but now we have allowed that, but it's very, very little. So it's maybe about 5 or 6 students per year who are just graduated from bachelor's, and then they're allowed to enter ISS. But this comes with some internship experience and proper background as well. But don't let this, just because if you're a recent graduate and you would like to apply to ISS, do not let this hold you down, because you can always apply, and the admission office and I can always assess on a case-by-case basis to see if your background matches our program. So please don't worry about that. So these are the number of students that we have for the past 5 years. You can see that the numbers are a little bit dropping, or in a wave. We had 173 students in 2018. That is the largest number of students we had. And then 2019, 151, so a little bit of a drop. And then 2020, because of the pandemic, we have 124 students. I would like to highlight that out of that 124 students, during the pandemic, it was very difficult to fly, but you still can fly. And embassies are closed, but on special occasions, they can open it. Out of the 124 students, 103 or 4 physically came to ISS. However, most classes still took place online, but they were still at the dormitories or accommodation at ISS. So they still could meet each other, although at a distance, but they still could a little bit mingle around and go out and so on. So even though the pandemic, students still decide to physically come to ISS. And then last year, there's a little bit of a jump in number of students because the pandemic has slowed. So we have 146 students. This year, we are looking at about 130 to 140 students. That's what I understood from my colleagues at admissions. So back to my point I said earlier about diversity. These are the number of countries that came to ISS for the past 5-6 years. I will start with 2018 because that is the best year. We had 170 students I mentioned to you earlier. Out of that 170 students, they all come from 55 different countries, 55. So that's really a lot. And then 2019-20, 50, then 40, and then last year was 47 different countries. So last year, 2020, 2021, we had 124 students, but 40 different countries came to ISS. So that's something that we are really proud of. And yeah, this also gives you as a student who study at ISS in the future to build your network, to get to know one another, and from there on to see what you can pursue after you graduate from ISS. So very specifically for Colombia, so the blue label is for the master students, and the yellow label is for the Mundus MAP students that we have. It's a double degree program. So last year we did not have any Colombian students who did the double degree of the Mundus MAP program. All 9 students come from Colombia, only 9. So I mentioned earlier there were about 30 or 20 something Latin American students, so 9 come from Colombia, which is quite high. I would say that's about 55 to 60%. So that's really, really high. You can see how from 2011 we had 17 students, then 9, and then it keeps going up and down like a little wave. So we are hoping that we will get more Colombian students this year or the year that comes. Now, that's a little bit about statistics. Now, I'm going to touch a little bit about the one and only master program that we have at ISS. Our master program runs from September 2022 or September and ends in the next year, December. So it's 15.5 months. It carries 88 European credit points. We have 5 different major and 1 master program track. I will touch a little bit on all of that in my next slide, but yeah. And we require an IELTS of 6.5. Everything is taught in English, so you do not need to learn Dutch, although you can if you want. There are classes which you need to pay at ISS, but not by much. So there is interest, you can learn Dutch as well, but the whole program is in English. And we have several joint degrees, for example, from universities in Vietnam and also Indonesia, and I think one in one of the Latin American countries, I'm not sure. So we do have joint degrees as well. And we have several specializations. So within the major, you can specialize further if you wish to. It's not mandatory. As I mentioned earlier, it starts in September. It's not a hard requirement anymore, but a degree in social sciences with an average overall good. We recently, as I mentioned earlier, also open our doors more broadly to not just look only at social sciences. It's not a hard requirement anymore. So you can come from a different background as well. But if you have the relevant experience and you have a good motivation letter, then it will not be a problem for you to join ISS. So even if you don't come from this background, you can always email me and inquire if your background matches our program before you apply for any scholarship. Now, these are the 5 majors and 1 track. Now, I'm not going to go through every one of it in detail. So I'm just going to name the major, and then I'm hoping that when you have the time, you go to a website and have a read on it, because it's very, 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 how do you say, detailed, written on our website on what the program entails. So we have the agrarian environmental studies, food and environmental studies. We have the economics of development, governance, development and policy, the human rights major, which is the most famous major that we have at ISS. So a lot of students join this major. We have the social policy for development, and that 1 track which I talked to you, which I mentioned earlier, the governance, migration and diversity track. So this now for the human rights. So before that, for each major, there's about 20 to 25 students in 1 major. So you will be broken down in your major only in term 2. So term 2 is from January till April. January, March, April. Yeah. So term 1, you'll be studying all together, but term 2, you will be slowly broken down into your major. So in one particular major, in one class, you will have 20 to 25 students, sometimes tiny bit lesser, but in human rights major, you normally have about 25 to 30. So it's a little bit more. And I think we will come to that, but most Colombian students, they normally choose the social policy for development. I'm not sure why, but this is the most famous major for Colombian students. And for the governance, migration, and diversity track, this track is relatively new. It's 3 years old. So normally we have not many students, about 4, 5, 6 students, but this is a very unique track because you will not only study at ISS, but you also study in different, different cities. So you will study in, there's a city called Leiden, there's a city called Delft, and you also go to the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. So just for everyone's knowledge, ISS is a faculty that is based in The Hague, not in Rotterdam, but in The Hague. But if you take this migration and diversity track, you will also have the opportunity to study in Rotterdam. So if you would like to know more about this track, please go ahead and visit our website and find out more. And if you need more information on top of that, you can always send me an email at study@iss.nl. It comes directly to me. So these are a little bit more statistics about major by numbers. So I told you earlier normally how many people are in per class. As you can see from last year, the agrarian major, you have about 18. It didn't change from 2 years ago, 24, 21. And then the migration track, you can see only 4. The human rights, the SJP is the human rights. I told you it's the highest, so 38. And then the SPD, which is very famous among Colombian students, is 20. And then the Mundus MAP, which is a separate program at ISS, is 21. So this is normally how many students are in per major. Now, the academic requirement, I've already mentioned earlier, Bachelor of Social Science, not necessary. We look at it at case-by-case basis. Work experience, again, not a must. If you have a right background, right motivation letter, and proper internship experience, we will consider. IELTS 6.5 for the academic test, and then TOEFL is all the paper-based and the computer-based and the internet-based figures all right here. So these are the most minimum requirement that you will have to meet, but all of those are not set in stone. So we deal with it on a case-by-case basis. Scholarship information. So apart from Por Futuro, we also have ISS partial scholarship. So we have 2 of those. It's not full scholarship, but it gives you 30% or 40% discount off your tuition fee. So that's something to think about as well. And on top of that, but you cannot combine this partial scholarship. If you have this partial scholarship, you cannot combine the partial scholarship, with the Col Futuro. So please bear that in mind. On top of that, we have the ISS scholarship database. So for the ISS scholarship database, you just have to go to the website, find the scholarship database, find your country, Colombia, click on it, and then you will see all available scholarship that a Colombian student can apply. So the more you apply, the more chances you have. So something to think about. Oh, there you go. So as I mentioned earlier, most popular major is the social policy for development. So these are the number of scholarship given for Col Futuro. So last year we had 5, previous years we had 4, 3, and 5. So this is the amount of scholarship that we get for Col Futuro on a yearly basis. So we had last year 9 students, so half of them will come to ISS via Col Futuro. that's something for you to keep in mind as well. Now, this is the estimate cost of living. Now, because of the war in Ukraine, and also because of the pandemic, a lot of things has changed. It's a little bit more expensive now everywhere in the world, but also in the Netherlands, the cost of living is getting a little bit higher. So what you see here, 950 a month, it's plus minus. It can be €1,000 as well. So it really depends on your lifestyle. So the biggest expense of this €950 comes from your accommodation, which I will explain to you later that ISS will have as well. So this is just all approximate, but you really need to keep in mind about the inflation and the rising cost of living. So, and your lifestyle. The more you cook at home, the more you save, let's say. Now, the tuition fee. So it will stay, the tuition fee is €17,500, and it will stay this year and next year. I just received confirmation today from the board of directors of ISS that the tuition fee will stay the same, because we were planning to increase the tuition fee, but it will not. So €17,500 is the tuition fee, and then there's the immigration fees, and then you really need a health insurance, is mandatory at ISS, and that is €860 for the whole 15.5 months, not 1 month, but 15.5 months. And then the 18,552, that depends on circumstances. So this is something that you will need to discuss with the admission office once you get admission at ISS. Now, it's not all about studying at ISS. There's also a lot of activities organized by staff and students. For example, the International Day, Sports Day, a lot of study trips, field trips, and of course, parties. So there are study trips that you do that you will go with your major. Depends, but not in the Netherlands. You will travel outside of the Netherlands with bus or flight. So it depends on the student. So where the student wants to go, that means you have to discuss among your group members, where you have to choose a country, choose an organization, choose an activity. So it's not really for you to go, well, it's half enjoying, half you have to do some kind of assignment. So keep that in mind. So the study trips are like that. And then there's also field trips. Field trips are mostly in the Netherlands, where you will have the opportunity to visit different organizations. It can be a trip that is organized by the lecturer, or it can be a trip that is organized by the students. So all these students have the right to also go to an organization, but you first have to discuss with your teacher, your lecturer. The International Day is really interesting, because here you will have the opportunity to showcase your culture, your food, your traditional dance. So this is something that happens every year, but it has not happened for the past 2 years, but it's expected to happen this year. So good for you, whoever is coming. We also have this organization called Scholas. Scholas is an organization of 4 students. So the president, vice president, the treasurer, and the assistant treasurer. So these students are the ears and eyes of all other students. So you, whoever participate or become the president or vice president, and so on, you will have the opportunity on a monthly basis to talk to the board of directors of ISS to see if there's a lot of complaint or so on. You can express all these during the meeting. So you have total freedom at ISS. Your voice and opinion we take very seriously into consideration while you are studying at ISS. Now, housing, guaranteed housing. Well, it really depends nowadays with this inflation. Sometimes it can be not many houses, but for now, at least for this year, almost everyone has an accommodation. from ISS. Some choose to stay outside, of course. That is also you can do, but I always advise students to stay at within the ISS buildings, because number one, it's a minute walk. Few of the buildings are 1 or 2 minutes walk, and the others are like 10 minutes bicycling. All rooms are very spacious. It comes with basic furniture, as you can see in the picture. You have a private bathroom and toilet, so you don't have to share it with anyone, but you will share kitchen. So in one floor, there will be 6 people. So you will share the kitchen with 6, sometimes 4, depending on the housing layout. Yeah, I think, yeah. So these are our social media information. Please do join us. We have a Facebook prospective group for all students who are interested to study at ISS. Please search it in our Facebook. We have information on YouTube as well, where you can further understand. There are a lot of videos and webinars about all the majors, and also information about student life at ISS. There is also one video that was done 3 years ago by one student from Bolivia and one student from Colombia. So the video is about half an hour. It's discussed on studying at ISS, living in the Netherlands, and so on, and scholarship information as well. And that is done in Spanish. So please have a look at that. That may help you. If you want to know a little bit more about what our alumni are doing, that means what are your career options when you graduate, join us in LinkedIn and then search for our alumni database. In LinkedIn, you can find it, and then you can see all what is our alumni doing after they graduate. So this will give you some kind of idea of what you can expect once you graduate and become an alumni of ISS. And that's it. So I don't know if I spoke too fast or too slow or a lot of information. I hope not. But if it's either one of those and you don't understand or you would like more information, please send me an email, study@iss.nl. This particularly comes to me. So I will take your questions and I will answer them. And if I can't, I will send it to people who can. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time, and Carolina as well for organizing this.
Thank you for your presentation. I think all the information was very useful. We received one question in the chat. Luz Angelica is asking, does Colfuturo have an agreement with the ISS?
Yes, we do. We have an agreement with ISS. Colfuturo has an agreement with ISS.
And, yes, and just to add, we offer a 20% discount in this agreement for the people admitted to the program and also selected by Colfuturo. So the first step is to apply to Colfuturo, get selected in the annual call, and have the admission of the university, and that's it.
Yes.
So we don't have, yes, we received one additional question. Natalia is asking, is there a list of specific masters that applied for the agreement?
Well, that's for Colfuturo to answer, I think, but ISS is there, I can tell you that. But I think there must be a list on the website.
Yes, I'm going to share the link. Give me a moment. Okay. Well, I think I received one more question. Maria Ulloa is asking, is there a scholarship? How is the application process? So I think you explained it before, but if you can briefly.
Yeah, so we have scholarship, but it's something that we have a database that you have to check. Click on Colombia when you reach our website, and then you will see all the scholarship that you as a Colombian future student can apply. The application process, it will depend on the scholarship itself. However, most of the time you will first need to get admitted first at ISS before you can apply for any scholarship, because most of the time they want to see your admittance letter. And the open date, well, the deadline is 1st of July. So the deadline for this year has passed. Unless you have an EU passport, then it's still okay, because it takes time to do your visa. So that's why EU is easier, but for all other students without the EU background, it's quite difficult now to apply for the visa and make it on time. So that's why it's closed. But the next open date is October 1st, beginning of October, let's say.
Right, so it answers the question. And lastly, I'd like to ask you a final recommendation or advice for the people that are starting to prepare the application process.
Yeah, okay, so final advice. If don't take your time, well, actually take your time to write your motivation letter, because 90% of the time, even if you're not from the right background, or you think that you may not qualify, your motivation letter to ISS is very important. As a matter of fact, it carries so much weight. Even if you are from the right background, it carries so much weight. Sometimes you can have a very good transcript, a lot of A's or B's, but if your motivation is not good, your motivation letter is not good, you can be rejected from studying at ISS. So please take your time to write your motivation letter. It's so very important. And the other thing is your scholarship. Once our admission is open in October, please apply for the master program if you're interested, because all the scholarship will open also around this time. So, and they will close very early, some in January, February, or some in March. So the faster you apply, the faster you get admitted, the higher your chance of getting the scholarship. And remember, to apply for ISS is free. You do not need to pay to apply for ISS. And if you do not come, you can defer for 1 year also for free. So this is not a problem at all. I see some questions. I can just answer them if you don't mind,
Yes.
Carolina.
Yes.
So on the website, it shows 2.2 average, and that we should have a bachelor. So that is correct. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. The 2.2, again, is the minimum requirement. If you're a little bit less, you still can try to apply, but there is 50-50 chance. It really, again, depends on your motivation. So the motivation is something that you really need to take into consideration. Motivation letter, sorry. Now, agriculture, okay. In peace building metrics, I would like to find a researcher in environmental peace. So Mauricio, maybe it's better you send me an email for this. Could you also make the link? I'm not sure about ISS. Yeah, Mauricio, it's better you send me an email, study@iss.nl. Then I can, how do you say, connect you to a potential lecturer who can answer your question, because this is very specific question.
All right. And can you please share your email?
Study@iss.nl.
Is that okay? Is the email that we have in the screen?
Yes.
I'm going to type it.
There is.
Right, so we answer all the questions. Second, Maria has
Internship, very good question. Internship is not mandatory at ISS. You do not need to take an internship, and a lot of students ask me if how would I advise them to take an internship or not. I always say, do not take the internship position, because it can jeopardize your master program. You're here for 15.5 months. You are allowed to do an internship, but I would advise against to, because it's very demanding program. However, there are a lot of students who still do an internship because they want to get the experience, so which is also okay, but you really need to know how to divide your time properly. So if you're good at dividing your time, you can do it. Please go ahead and do it. But note that ISS will not help you to find an internship because it's not mandatory. So you will have to find an internship on your own. So it's maybe better to ask like the alumni to help you or something like that, or search for it online. So you make sure you have a very good LinkedIn profile, because in the Netherlands, LinkedIn is very, very important to find a job.
Thank you. I'm going to read the question for the people who will be watching the recording. We just answered the question, how the university supports students to find internships when they are required to successfully complete the program. So thank you everyone for joining this session. We will be sending the recording in the next couple of days. Thank you very much, Darren, for accepting the invitation for this presentation. And have a great day.
Yes, thank you everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.